We are live. Hello and welcome to the very last instalment of Pride Inside, hosted by UK Black Pride. I'm Char Bailey. I'm a life coach, I'm a radio host, and I'm also an educations officer for UK Black Pride. And I have the honour and pleasure of being joined today by a man who calls himself a teacher, author, activist, and lover, which I love, the incredible Lama Rod Owens. Hello, welcome. How are you? Can you hear me? Are we connected? Please say we are. It looks like Rod can hear me, which I feel must be a sign from the universe that I have to practice patience and exercise gratitude for the moment and being here. I'd like to just remind you all that UK Black Pride is a volunteer-run organisation, and that there has been so much hard work gone into putting on these Pride Inside live events this year. So I'd just like to say, UK Black Pride is all about healing. We're all about uplifting our community and connecting. So hopefully today we can have a little chat with the incredible Lama Rod Owens. We can go through a little guided meditation. And I'm sure some of you are wondering why this broadcast is called Love and Rage. And that's because Lama Rod has a brand new book titled Love and Rage, which hopefully we'll get to speak to him a little bit more about if he manages to get a connection. Director, have we got any connection yet? Can you hear me, Rod? Nothing as of yet. So it's really important to remember that when we're doing our spiritual practices, and I know that Rod is going to talk us through a little bit about this, that we don't just focus on the positives. I'm a big believer in love and light. I say love and light. Those of you who follow me on social media will have heard me talk about love and light. But it's really important to focus on the shadow work, those things that perhaps hold us back, perhaps the things that make us a little bit angry, or the things that really set us in a state of mind that isn't going to help us get towards where we want to be. So it's really important we address that and we do what's called, or what we call in the spiritual word, the shadow work. We embrace those things that are maybe not so much about love and light, maybe they're things that are about pain, maybe they're the things that are about suffering, maybe they are the things like the injustices that we see in the world that weigh heavy on our heart. It's not always the right thing to do to think about, oh, we'll just focus on the positives. Sometimes we have to really harness that pain, harness that rage, and try and put some kind of purpose to it. I know that Lama Rod has a rich history in activism, in working in the community, and I know that he is a perfect example of somebody who has put all of that rage, all of those injustices, and done something with it. I've been really looking at myself, working on my blackness, and have really struggled during this time to, I guess, accept that the world has been so unfair. And that pain, that rage, that uncertainty, it's really caused a block. But what I'm hoping is that some of you that here resonate and you felt that block, you felt that stiffness that happens when we're full of this anger. And so I'm really hoping that the incredible Lama Rod is going to help us release some of that, or at least learn how we can direct some of that. It's often that we think anger, rage are all damaging and they're the worst emotions. But during this conversation, I'm hoping that Lama Rod is going to show us how we can use those emotions, how we can use them to fuel us, how we can gain something from this experience rather than suffering as a result of being alive during this time. It has been wild. I've got some quotes from Lama Rod, and I'm hoping that when they arrive or later on in the conversation, they're going to be able to talk us through what they meant. But I'd also like us to remember that irrespective of the conversations that are had and the lessons that are learnt, we are aiming to inspire. And when I say inspire, I don't mean that in a egotistical sense. I mean that in the sense of the true meaning of the word inspiration. I want this conversation, and I know that I'm not just speaking for myself, I'm speaking for all of the UK Black Pride chosen family. This conversation is inspiring in the sense that it speaks to you, and something inside of you is triggered so that you can do, be, and become more. Because often we look externally for the answers, when most of the answers, in fact, if not all of the answers, all of the time, without certainty, are inside of us. And Lana Rod, I can hear you finally, so hopefully that means that you can hear me. Welcome.
Yes, sorry about that. It was
Please don't apologise. I don't know about you, but I'm a big believer in everything happens in perfect time.
yes. Well, it was I think Satan was trying to get in the way of, because we know Satan's very homophobic, so and very anti-black, so all of that.
I love that we can laugh at this. So welcome. I know that you couldn't hear me, but what I was saying is I was just giving an introduction into what I was hoping that the beautiful family that we've got gathered here with us today can gain from our conversation. I did talk a little bit about you, but I don't want to take that away from you. So in your own words, can you just explain who you are and how you came to be who I'm calling the incredible Lama Rod Owens?
Let's see, who am I? I'm all kinds of things. I would say that I am someone who, for most of my life, has been really concerned with freedom. Um, and and I think that that has driven me to do all kinds of things in my life. From beginning to learn about activism and service and justice to kind of getting involved in kind of the spiritual work, the inner work of freedom. It also really led me to bring together both the social freedom and the ultimate freedom, and to bring it together to try to create something um, that helped me to continue to fight for freedom on the ground, as I was also really getting concerned with what ultimate freedom was like, that transcended the world at the same time.
Wow. It's so powerful the way you talk about freedom. And to me, freedom, I've been taught, comes at a cost. I've been taught freedom ain't free. Freedom ain't free. Apologies for the awful American accent. But have you had to pay a price for your freedom?
Mhm. I've had to pay a lot. Freedom for me has been this a toll, a price that has felt sometimes to be really brutal and heavy. Um, but I understand that the things that I have been called to offer to pay to move towards freedom are the things that I don't need to begin
Wow.
with.
That's
You
so
know,
powerful, specifically now
yeah.
during this lockdown, this pandemic, this idea of freedom being taken away. Are you sort of alluding to the fact that your freedom is irrespective of things being taken? Is your freedom something that comes from within you?
Both, right. It's freedom. It's things that are being taken away, but it's also things I'm offering
Wow.
too. And I think as we continue this path, you begin to actually learn how to offer. You learn how you learn to see what needs to be offered, and you offer it. Instead of everything just being taken away and ripped from
Wow.
you.
And that is so, again, I feel like I have my pen and notebook with me because whenever I'm in the presence of a teacher, I always feel it appropriate to write down notes. And that idea of a change in perception
Yeah,
rather than looking at what's being taken, looking at what you can offer.
yeah,
Um, we talk a lot about that in spirituality, the idea of giving, receiving, and offering. So when it comes to offering from yourself, how do you ensure that you're not pouring too much out and you're still getting something back for you? Because we're in a healing space. How do we make sure we're not giving too much?
yeah. Yeah, there's a teaching from one of my teachers and from one of the lineages that I practice in. And the teaching is you have to pour as you drink. So you drink as you pour,
It
right?
sounds
And
kind of
so
like how I used to party, but I'm going to apply that to my life now.
you can apply it to all kinds of ways. This is a multi-service teaching, multi-situation. Yeah, like I enter into the world with a sense of wanting to remain in balance. So as I am giving, as I'm pouring into the world through whatever it may be, activism, service, teaching, support, emotional labor, whatever it may be, I am at the same time really concerned with getting the support and the care that I need in order to be well and to maintain that pouring into the world. You know, um, I know like when I'm not being cared for or when I'm not getting back what I need to. And I think that we in our community, we have to get really kind of serious about what it means to be cared for. And I think that we should be creating and forming our community in such a way that like we're getting the care that we need from one another. That I think some of us are doing too much labor for the community, and we have to start thinking, okay, how can everyone get what they need from our communities? You know,
So we're giving to our communities, but in the same we're also making sure that we're giving to ourselves.
yes,
That word balance is it's one of my favorite words, actually, balance, because it's something that we talk about in the queer world, in the spiritual world. There's lots of different ideas around balance. And I know you couldn't hear me, but I was sort of saying earlier that I'm a big fan of yours, and I've read lots of what you've written and I've heard lots of what you've said. And something that you said really stuck with me, and it was about the female influences that you had that really inspired and empowered you. And I'm sort of, you're a black gay man, I'm a mixed lesbian woman. There's a lot of question around masculine, feminine energy. And I really believe that in order to have balance within, you have to find that masculine and feminine energy in order to be whole and feel as though you pour out. So how do you go about keeping your balance in check with how do it's Sunday, everybody does self-care on Sunday. I know definitely the UK Black Chosen family always do on Sunday. Big Love Me and Lady Thought often wash our hair. But how do you ensure that you are maintaining the balance of that energy through your self-care?
I think it's for me. I think at the very beginning of my practice, it was learning how to be in relationship to my discomfort. Discomfort is a really key indicator of how we're doing. And so balance comes from the ways in which I begin to notice when I'm not doing well. And so when I'm not doing well, I go, oh, okay, there's something I need to tend to, right? There's something that I need to invite into my sphere, into my practice as a form of care and nourishment. Um, like for instance, like one thing that has been a really important practice for me is that I want to do things that are fun,
Yes.
and restorative and generative, and I'm beginning to back away from projects and work where I don't have fun, because I think
Not fun,
sometimes,
you're not doing it.
yeah, yeah, it's just like
Well,
I
I said it like
don't,
a joke.
like it's like I'm tired of having the obligation of doing things that I feel forced to do, I feel are obligated to do.
Hmm.
I think that deprives me so much, and I think work can be fun. It can be enjoyable, it can be restorative, regardless of what kind of work it is. You can talk about the work of liberation of freedom, the work of supporting folks, or whatever it is. Like work can actually be, really restorative and generative and supportive. Like and that's something I've worked really hard to cultivate, in
I
like
love
my
that.
professional space.
Yeah, because I imagine that a lot of people who are here in this space with us are activists or are doing the
Yeah.
work and are wanting to find some kind of release or relief. And
Yeah.
we're going to get on to giving them a little bit of hopefully some light relief in terms of the meditation that
Okay.
hopefully will be kind enough to guide us through shortly.
Mhm.
But in terms of practical accessibility, tools that we can try at home, that we can be
Mhm.
sat, I'm in my bedroom, we can be sat at home, we can be tired from media or from
Mhm.
family or
Mhm.
from just the world itself.
Mhm.
What's your, I love to do things in 3 top tips. What
Yes.
would your sort of 3 top tips to be that you can start practicing right now to get yourself that little bit of relief?
Mhm. Mhm. Well, the first thing is actually, and this is probably not in order or any particular order, but these are the three things that I do.
Love it.
And so first of all, I'm very clear about what brings me joy and pleasure. And so I know what to go to. I know what to do when I'm like overwhelmed by everything. And I get back home, I get into my space. There are things that I do. They're just like, okay, this is going to be fun. This is going to be joyous. This is going to be pleasurable. So it's like music. It may be food. It may be, I love just sitting in silence. That's just me. But like, I just love cutting off everything, cutting off the phone, cutting off whatever it is, TV, and just sitting and just like being in silence, because for many of us, every day we're just overwhelmed with all
Mhm.
kinds of stuff, and just
Constantly
that,
being stimulated. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's like the first thing that I do. I'm like, I love silence. I love cutting it off. I love, and so that's one of the things that I do. Music is part of that, what have you. So the second thing that I would say is this is really about boundaries,
Hmm.
you know, learning to say no,
Hmm.
and like when there are spaces that I come into every day, and it's usually like in the evening or early morning, or even maybe parts in the middle of the day where it's like you're not going to get any communication from me. You're not like I'm not going to send a text back. I'm not sending emails.
Blind
People
side's
who,
closed.
yeah, and I have this whole thing now where it's just like I respond to what's urgent, but if it's not urgent, then it's not a priority. And I think that like we're in this kind of media age where we have technology, personal technology that makes us too accessible.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
I feel almost anxiety about replying to somebody on time so that I don't hurt their feelings, because I know that
yes,
they have the expectation that because
yes,
they arrived in my phone that I should then open the door and let them into my house.
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that's a feeling that a lot of people have.
Yeah, that's part of like white supremacy, capitalism, colonialism that says that like I should always be responding to
Hmm.
people, and as Black queer people, it's also the struggle of us being conditioned in a context that says that like, oh, like I have no agency, actually, like I don't get to choose how I get
I'm
to be
ready
in
to
the
say,
world. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, like everything is dictated
Hmm.
for me, and we have to resist that by saying, you know what, I want to take space I want to slow down, you
It takes
know,
power.
yeah, hmm and it's like and it's communicating with people. It's communicating with people and saying, you know what, like I'm not a texter, I'm not an emailer, you know, that I will prioritize your message if I can, or the work that needs to be done when I can. But I'm also about prioritizing care and rest and restoration, and we have to break that cycle. We have to break that cycle. And so that's that. And then the third thing is just a personal practice that I do, which is kind of letting go. Like I really consciously, I let go of things. I have
So
practices. Hmm.
letting go is such an ambiguous term now.
Yeah.
I've seen
Hmm.
so many Instagram quotes, let it go. There's a whole film about it that kids love. They sing songs about it, let it go, gotta let it go.
Yeah.
This
Hmm.
white blonde girl's telling me to let it go.
Yeah.
Um, as a black queer person,
Yeah.
there's a lot to let go. How do
Hmm.
we even begin to start with the let it? I'm not going to sing it. Sorry, everyone's watching. I'm not going to sing it. But how do we even begin to start letting it go?
Yeah. Well, first of all, here's a question. you know, and this is a little more specific, but like the thing that I start letting go initially is work that isn't mine to do.
Yes.
And I think part of what it means to be in the Black queer community and to be a person of color, in general, is that like we take on a lot of different work that isn't ours to do. Like we take on a lot of emotional labor as isn't ours to do. We feel obligated to always intervene and to disrupt things, particularly if there are, instances of discrimination and so forth happening in the space around us. We feel as if we're obligated to disrupt it. And I have to take a step back and say, you know what, like every battle isn't mine to fight.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing I start letting go.
Hmm.
And I ask myself, what is my work?
Yeah.
What is my work? What should I be doing now? you know and again, I want to prioritize care for myself, because if I don't care for myself, I can't do my work at all, period. Let alone like supporting other people in
Anyone
their
else?
work. And that's the thing, is always coming back to this, like we have to embrace our care. Like that has to we have to begin to see self-care, self-preservation as a radical liberatory act. We have to see resting as like one of the most profound radical acts that we can engage in. Because when I think about my ancestors, one of the dreams that my ancestors had for their descendants, and I am their descendant, is for me to have the agency to rest. You know, to have the
That's
agency.
beautifully put.
Mhm,
What a
mhm,
beautiful reminder for us
mhm.
all that was what was intended for us.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love that you said that, self-care being radical. I have what I like to call a radical bath. I just had one just
Yes.
now before we jumped on here. But it was sort of the perfect. I'm just going to recap for everybody at home that's come into this space and that wants to learn. So, tip 1, know what brings you joy. Number 2, boundaries. And number 3, letting go. That's perfect. I've got my notes written down here, so thank you for sharing that. And I think it leads us on perfectly, if you would be happy to guide us through a meditation. I mean, you said we really need to embrace our self-care. And I think what a perfect introduction. So if you can allow us the time and space to connect with you, then I will definitely sit here and, welcome in your energy into my space and hope to connect and heal together.
Okay, fantastic, awesome, and maybe in this practice, we'll do maybe for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a really good link, yeah. And when we talk about practice, like I think it's really, if you're new to doing something like this, I really encourage you just to keep it short, and maybe like we're gonna do like a 10-minute practice, maybe a little longer, and you may say, oh, that's really long. But in this practice, you really, excuse me, in practice in general, like you just really want to kind of touch into something, and get benefit and then touch out,
Okay.
touch in, touch out, and tap out. Get the benefit, tap out.
All of the wrist.
Yeah, I know.
Have I got it?
It's true. This is it. It's like going to the refrigerator and just getting a snack.
Okay.
And this is something that's sustainable. So when you do practice like this, it's sustainable. That's what I want. And my personal practice is sustainability. So let's begin. So when you're doing practices of care, I just really encourage you to just allow your body to be in a position that is appropriate for you. That means you can lie down. It means you can stand up. It means you can sit in a chair. You can walk around and pace, whatever is appropriate for you. This is what I encourage you to do. This is the first kindness and care that we offer to ourselves, is the agency for our bodies to be in whatever position that feels really supportive for us. So you're already doing it if you do this. And this could be a whole practice. It's getting home and asking your body how it needs to be. Okay. So as we continue deeper into the practice, I really appreciate just noticing my breath. And the breath can be really tricky for many of us. But depending on how resourced I am in the moment, I like to just really just notice the breath, noticing the in-breath and the out-breath. And if that's all I can do, I just kind of keep moving through the practice. But if I can stay a little longer with the breath, I just allow the breath to slow down. And what that means is that I allow the breath to deepen. So I take longer to inhale, and I take longer to exhale. So that's the breath slowing down, elongating, getting deeper. And again, you can stay with the breath for as long as you want. But often I just spend a few moments with the breath, and then I shift my attention to noticing, the weight of my body as it rests on whatever I'm sitting on or lying on or standing on. So I just notice the weight of my body, how it's making contact with my seat. And the sensations. So again, the sensations of my body resting on the seat, these sensations become anchors. And so they draw my attention out of my head, out of my thoughts, deep down through the body, close to the earth. where it feels really anchoring. Okay? And again, so many of us live in our minds, we live in our thoughts, we live from the neck up. And to shift our attention down to the seed, again, can feel really nourishing, really grounding. And when I do that in this moment, it just feels like I'm coming home to something that can hold me, something that feels nourishing. And also in my practice, it's really important for me to connect to the land or to the earth. And I just imagine that my attention kind of drops into the earth. It goes right into the earth, and I'm just noticing the earth. I'm touching the earth. And for me, that's a really powerful practice of grounding really deeply into the earth, being held by the earth. As I'm touching into the earth, of course, the earth is touching me back, and the earth is holding me. And in my practice, I just imagine just being held by the earth. And I also imagine just letting go, as we talked about earlier, letting go of things that I'm holding on to, particularly things that I don't need to hold on to, or things that I struggle with. I just imagined like offering those things down into the earth. And so shifting my attention back up, higher into the body, I bring my attention to my heart center. And that's right in the middle of our chest. And I invite you just to begin to reflect on something or someone that you're grateful for. So connecting to the energy of gratitude. And the energy of gratitude is this recognition that I am dependent on other people and other situations to get the resources that I need. And I connect to the ways in which I get my food from other people's labor, or I get my housing from other people's labor, and so forth and so on. And this gratitude is an appreciation of the work others have put in to make sure I'm cared for. And these people don't have to know who I am, they can just be doing a job, right? But still, their labor is an act of care for me because they offer things that I need to be well. And so I just connect to that and I open to that and I feel that energy of gratitude just beginning to move through my body and through my mind. And even at this point, we can use the energy of gratitude as something that we can step into and to rest in. And so, what does it feel like? What does it mean for us to be held, cared for, and tended to by this energy of gratitude? And I wonder what your experience would be for you to direct that energy of gratitude back towards yourself and to actually begin to appreciate yourself. Begin to appreciate your labor, your work, your loving, your compassion. Just appreciate you, period. Not for what you do, not for what you have, but just appreciate yourself in this moment. What is that experience like? And now I invite you to shift your attention into your mind. And I invite you to notice thoughts and emotions. And you can just notice how you're thinking and what you're thinking about, or what you're feeling and how you're feeling it. And I encourage you to imagine that your mind is like this vast ocean, or this beautiful black, beautiful spacious ocean. And you can even imagine in your mind that you're walking down to the beach and you're sitting on the beach looking out over the ocean, and that's your mind. This ocean is your mind. Vast, open, spacious, deep, fluid, moving. And you may notice waves coming and going, rising and falling. These waves are just thoughts and emotions rising out of the mind, but they also just return back to the mind, to the ocean of the mind. They're just rising and falling. And I wonder if we can just for a few moments just sit and watch these thoughts, these waves of thoughts and emotions rise and fall from the ocean of our minds. Just letting them go. Letting them be. This is what it means to let go. We just allow the material in our minds just to do whatever it's doing in the moment. And I just watch. I don't have to get involved. I don't have to get attached or fixated, nor do I have to run away. Just sit and watch. And so slowly we'll start actually coming out of the practice, and we do that just by first bringing our attention back to the seat, back to the weight of the body, coming back to the earth, and letting these sensations, these grounding sensations, really like anchor us again back in this moment. And as we notice the earth again, I wonder if there's anything else that you want to let go of. And if you want to let go of it, I wonder if you can just drop it down into the earth and allow the earth to hold it for us. Can you call on the earth to hold the things that we struggle to hold? So, coming back into this moment, coming back out of the practice. And the very last thing that I often like to do is just do like 3 cleansing breaths. And cleansing breaths are just really deep inhales and exhaling just really fully. You just make a sound, like just get really active, just inhaling deeply. As if I'm like exhaling from every opening in my body, right? And letting go. And just let it go, let it out. And it's just a nice, simple, refreshing practice that we can do every day.
Wow, can you come so you can do that for me every day? I don't think I'm alone when I say thank you so much. That was a beautiful space that you have. Whenever I meditate, when I finish, I say 3 things to myself. I love myself, I trust myself, I am enough.
Yeah.
So for those who are out there, if you've shared this meditation, please love yourself, trust yourself, and
Yes.
remember that you are enough.
Mm-hmm.
I can't have you here for the last UK Black Pride, for the last episode of Pride Inside, for a masterclass discussion about love and rage without talking about the book.
Yes.
The book.
Yes. And just to put it out there are places in the UK that the book is available, and you can order through Foils, and you can order through the Hive website, which is hive.co.uk. And those are the places you can get it. The book is relatively sold out. I mean, it's on Amazon, but like we want to support books, small bookstores and small companies. So, but the books are coming back into circulation, hopefully this coming week. And so, but here it is, Love and Rage. I wrote the book. As soon as I find how to, so there we go.
Yes. You
So
can see
Love
it
and
there.
yeah, I have
Just
just like
with
a second delay in my camera, so it's like, but so Love and Rage, I wrote it, after the 2016 elections here in the States, where so many people were pissed off, they're so angry. That's one other tree. And I decided just to kind of talk about anger and rage, but I wanted to talk about anger as being important, and not as something we have to get rid of or bypass, but something that we can actually embrace and learn to be in a relationship with, And the way that we're able to be in a relationship with anger is by actually going beneath the anger and being in a relationship with the woundedness or brokenheartedness. Because when people come to me and they say, "Oh, I'm really pissed off," actually, what I hear them trying to say is that they're hurt,
wow.
they're
Yeah.
wounded, they're scared, they're frustrated. There's a basic discomfort, that the anger is trying to point to. And if we can take care of that basic hurt, then we can be in a really different relationship with anger. And that's when we really start using anger to get things done. Because most of us just react to anger. But in the book, I talk about actually channeling anger into like getting stuff done, into creating change, into disrupting systems of violence. But it takes
So
us
it has
being,
to be some of the fuel.
yeah, it's fuel, right? But that takes us being, learning how to be whole, emotionally mature humans, people, you
Because
know?
often anger, and we were talking a little bit about this before you joined, and the perception of anger is that it's bad, we have to get rid of it, anger is a
Yeah,
no-no for us.
yeah,
But what we're saying here is that if we can use that anger, then we can do something productive with it.
yeah. And not that like we haven't done anything productive with anger,
Okay.
but we're also really aware that we've created a lot of harm because of anger as well. But what we're really, really trying to do is um, not be afraid of it. Really, like I'm not afraid of my anger anymore because I have agency over it.
Yes.
So I can get really pissed off. I can experience anger like all the time. I can be in situations where I'm just like really triggered. Absolutely. But my anger doesn't have agency. I have agency over the anger, so I can be aware of the anger. I can ride that energy and channel that energy and still maintain love and compassion. But I can also be direct and honest at the same time, and that
That,
comes from the
that
anger. The anger pushes me.
yeah, that
Hmm.
the anger is, I think that's, for me, as a student listening to learning, that's the that's the biggest barrier, I think, for activists, for people who are doing the work. It's how do you get this, we touched on it earlier, this balance between the two. How do you still remain cared for and loving and compassionate? Because everybody who is an activist, I hope, has the intention and the passion and the compassion to then go and share and learn and inspire and activist out there. So how do you get this? I'm still a loved, nourished being, but I have this anger burning within me that I need to use. Where do we get that balance? Is that what is the book a guide to that? Am I going to give too much
Yes.
away?
No, no, the book is exactly about that balance. And we have to learn how to practice. Like, this isn't work that just happens because we want it to happen. We have to develop a practice of being with our emotions. In the same way we just did in our practice session. That's exactly what we do. We're trying to learn how to be with our emotional self, you know? And we are also trying to, in my practice, what I've been trying to do and practice pretty regularly is skillful active mourning. So, like, and for me, that means that, like, I am intentionally touching into the grief. I call it brokenheartedness in the book. I
Do we
touch
tap
into,
in in the same way that
you,
we tap in? Yeah,
you
we can
absolutely
do that.
can. And yeah, you start by tapping in, tapping out.
Yeah.
But as you're deepening the practice, you just learn how to hold space for it and just to be with it. And that your brokenheartedness isn't something that you have to be afraid of. And when you hold the space for something like the brokenheartedness, or even the anger, any emotion, any emotional energy, when we hold space for it, we actually start the process of experiencing these energies. And we don't know how to experience because we're so busy reacting. We feel it and then we do something. That's the reaction. But a liberatory practice is to actually experience, like, what does this actually feel like? And for me, when I actually started experiencing my anger, like, it completely transformed my relationship to anger. I said, oh, this is what anger is. There's a physical aspect of anger, there's a mental aspect of anger. and it's a lot of energy, you know, and like, and
It's a
I just,
lot of energy.
I love, energy is wonderful, and but I have to learn how to hold it. I have to learn to be a container
Yes.
for everything that I experience. And that's when anger and all emotions become transformative, is when we experience it and you just see it for something that's completely different. It's not my sadness, for instance, which is, another word for brokenheartedness, isn't something that I'm afraid of. I can just experience it. And then in experiencing it, I can actually learn how to like let it go. I'm not holding on to it. I'm not using brokenheartedness or sadness or despair or anger as something to build my identity around. And we build our identities when we say, I am angry. I'm just angry. I'm just pissed off. That's who I am. That's actually not who you are. Your anger, your sadness is just an experience that you're having. Like you're not
Yes.
always angry.
Yeah. Well, that's such a powerful sentiment, especially now, because
Hmm.
of what's happening in the world. Um,
Hmm.
Rightly so. In preparation for this talk, for this conversation, I spoke to my sister, my mentor, my friend, Kaiser Rose. Hi, if you're here, and also head of external events for UK Black Pride. And in our conversation, we were having a little pep talk, and we spoke, well, she spoke actually about all feelings being valid and accepting that if you are angry or sad or hurt, that that's what you are and that's okay. You're allowed to feel that. On your
Yes.
Instagram, I'm sorry, I've already told you I'm a big fan, so I've Instagram stalked you, but you posted recently about, I think it was a quote from the book about white supremacy
Yes.
and a little about the anger that people are feeling now. So I know I haven't got much time left. I had a few tech issues at the beginning, but just lastly, just because it is so prevalent right now, can you just, without giving away too much of the book, just give us a little bit of an insight into your thoughts on that, just to close the session?
Hmm. Hmm. So my insights, yeah, when I think about like white supremacy, it's for me, it's many thoughts, but like one of the things that I have to say is that like it's really up to white folks to do the work of dismantling white supremacy. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to divest from the system, you know, and reinvest in identities that are about liberation and equity and connection, you know. But that takes a tremendous amount of moving through brokenheartedness because whiteness in the way it's constructed, I think for the UK, for America, is that whiteness, particularly in America, whiteness is this thing that was created,
Mm-hmm.
to keep Black people and Indigenous people in one place at the very beginning, right? At the very beginning, you know. Um, and you have to realize what that is, and then you have to allow your heart to break, realizing that you were born into something that was created to keep you in opposition to people that you may love, and that work is really hard, and for people of color, BIPOC people, and so forth, it's our work of also dismantling white supremacy in our own experience as well, because we're also perpetuating the system by the ways in which we buy into white supremacy and how that actually impacts our communities and other racial communities within the community. So um, we have to mourn everything. We have to allow our hearts to break and mourn everything. And then that's
Wow.
emotional labor. Emotional labor is going to get us free. Emotional labor is going to disrupt patriarchy, capitalism, all these systems, because these systems are about us being disconnected from our emotions. And if we're
Wow.
disconnected from our emotions, then we're often just reacting to our emotions in ways that are violent. You know.
I feel like I don't have enough ink in my pen to get down all of the power and the magic that that you've just said. And I think, you know, that is a message for everyone. There is work to be done. There is work for our communities. There is work within our families, and there's work to be done within ourselves. Thank you, Lana Rod Owens, for joining me so much. Your presence has been a gift. I'm always humbled and grateful to be able to do anything on behalf of UK Black Pride, and this experience has been nothing short of amazing. I hope you at home have enjoyed Pride Inside. I hope you've enjoyed all of the UK Black Pride content that's been coming to you all over the last few days. Don't forget, UK Black Pride's 15th birthday is this year, so make sure you send us lots of love on the Instagram. If you can donate, but also remember that we are here as a space for you. We are your family, and please do reach out, connect with your families, and connect with us and each other. Thanks so much for being here. Happy Pride, and thanks again to the amazing Lana Rod Owens for joining us and teaching us. Take care, everyone.